In 1937, Pablo Picasso was regarded as the preeminent artist of his time and one of the most influential figures in 20th century art. A trailblazer and innovator, in 1907 he pioneered Cubism and revolutionized the art world. Now at the age of 56, he stood on the verge of crafting his groundbreaking anti-war masterpiece, the mural-sized painting Guernica. On Monday, April 26, 1937, around 4:30 p.m., the skies above Guernica, a quiet village nestled in the Basque country of northern Spain, were swarmed by the Condor Legion, a Nazi Air Force unit. At the behest of General Francisco Franco, German warplanes employed a new military tactic known today as saturation or carpet bombing. Spain had become a testing ground for the latest German weaponry under battlefield conditions. During the late afternoon, for several hours on market day, the Luftwaffe indiscriminately unleashed over 100,000 pounds of explosive and incendiary bombs on the city center, obliterating the once thriving town and killing many people. With most of the men engaged in the Spanish Civil War, Guernica was predominantly inhabited by women and children. Tragically, as innocent civilians fled the city seeking refuge in the surrounding fields, they were ruthlessly mowed down by machine gun fire from the diving German planes. Since there were no military targets present, this marked the first instance of terror inflicted upon a civilian population by aerial bombardment. It was a dark foreshadowing of the blitzkrieg tactics employed later by the Nazis during World War II. It was a horrific event. The Spanish Civil War, which took place from 1936 to 1939, was a deeply divisive and brutal conflict that began when a group of right-wing generals led by Francisco Franco launched a coup against the country's democratically elected government. Shortly after the start of the war, the struggling Spanish Republican government commissioned Picasso to create a large-scale artwork to raise international awareness of the ongoing war for the Spanish Pavilion at the 1937 World's Fair in Paris, where Picasso was now living. Throughout the majority of his life, Picasso, a native of Spain, maintained a famously apolitical stance, showing no interest in politics. However, the Spanish Civil War changed his views. In early May, Picasso's attention became focused on George Steere's eyewitness account of an event that had deeply shaken the public. Steere wrote, quote, "When I visited the town, the whole of it was a horrible sight, flaming from end to end. The reflection of the flames could be seen in the clouds of smoke above the mountains from 10 miles away," end quote. Disturbed at the brutality of the aerial bombardment, Picasso decided to address the tragic events of Guernica in his painting. His artwork would become one of the most famous anti-war images of history. This large, mural-sized work is 11.5 feet high by 25.5 feet wide and was finished in 35 days using a matte house paint that was specifically formulated at Picasso's request to have the least amount of gloss. With the urgency of a newspaper photograph, Picasso used black and white to dramatize the wartime agony of death and senseless destruction. When pressed to explain his art, Picasso was notoriously mysterious and obscure. He preferred that the work speak for itself on its own terms. Because of this, the symbolism and interpretation of Guernica vary widely from individuals and critics. However, being a great student of art history, Picasso appears to cleverly reference numerous significant artworks in his painting. The writer Alice Dumanian Tankard proposed that Guernica may be based on a mirror image of the famous painting The Consequences of War by Peter Paul Rubens from 1638, which was Rubens' response to the 30-Year War. If we flip the image and turn it into black and white, we can more clearly see that many of the figures in Rubens' work appear to have a corresponding version in Picasso's Guernica. For example, one can identify a distressed woman cradling her child. Alecto, one of the Greek Furies and the incarnation of anger, holds a torch high. The woman with the outstretched arms. An unconscious man on the ground, and so on. All appear in both paintings. Picasso explained the symbolism of the work with a childlike simplicity, stating that the bull, a symbol of virility and oppressive power, represents, quote, brutality and darkness, end quote. Might this bull, with its tail smoldering, symbolize the fascist who sow death and destruction in their wake? The struggling, screaming, impaled horse with a spear-point tongue represents the people, according to Picasso. Screaming as she holds her dead child, a woman with eyes shaped like tears cries to the heavens. She is also reminiscent of the Pietà, the Virgin Mary cradling the dead body of her son by Michelangelo. Between the horse and bull is the figure of a screaming bird, perhaps a dove, a symbol of peace threatened. Below the horse is a dead and dismembered soldier whose right arm holds a shattered sword that may represent the broken dream for a new Spain. The open palm of his left hand contains a stigma, which is a symbol of martyrdom derived from the stigmata of Christ. These are the physical marks left on the body of the crucified Christ, like the nail wounds in his hands. Amid the chaos, a small flower grows, perhaps suggesting hope. At the top, a light like a single light bulb seen in a torturer's chamber is in the shape of an eye, maybe the eye of God, or maybe an evil eye. This solitary light bulb is the only 20th century technology in the painting, suggesting perhaps the technological advancements that led to the destruction of Guernica. At the bottom, an injured woman with nipples that have become bolts is captivated by the light as she holds her knee while stumbling around crazed. On the right, a woman flails wildly under a burning building. Her pose is reminiscent of one of the characters in the famous painting, The 3rd of May, 1808, by the Spanish painter Francisco de Goya. Out of a window near the top, a lady with a long arm holds a lamp to illuminate the unspeakable horror for everyone to see, a symbol of the conscience of a horrified humanity. Employing a shallow space and using the language of Cubism with dynamic angles and flat, overlapping characters, the scene deliberately creates a sense of the horror and confusion of war. But Picasso's Guernica is not specific commentary on the destruction of the Basque village, but rather a statement of protest against the brutality of all war. The lack of specific historical information, coupled with the potential for multiple interpretations, contribute to the enduring power of Guernica. Following the conclusion of the World's Fair, Picasso declined to send his painting to Spain until the country transitioned into a democracy. Instead, the artwork embarked on a global journey until it eventually found a permanent residence at the Museum of Modern Art in New York. Picasso passed away in 1973, never having the opportunity to witness Guernica displayed in his homeland of Spain. Franco's death occurred 2 years later in 1975, leading to the restoration of democracy in 1978 for Spain. In 1981, Guernica was relocated to its current location, the Reina Sofia Museum in Madrid, Spain, where it resides today. In February 2003, right before the onset of the U.S. war in Iraq, a tapestry replica of the painting that was located outside the United Nations Security Council chamber in an area where diplomats make statements to the press became the focal point of a controversy. Before the then U.S. Secretary of State Colin Powell's address to the UN, the tapestry was concealed behind a blue curtain. According to the reports, government officials were worried about the visual impact of Powell standing in front of the 20th century's most iconic protest against the inhumanity of war while urging that American soldiers be sent into combat. Guernica stands alone among the works of art from the 20th century in terms of its profound impact. It has transcended boundaries to become the ultimate representation of senseless mass killings, leaving an indelible mark on history. Even today, its significance remains as crucial as it was back in 1937, as the world continues to grapple with the enduring lessons of universal suffering. Guernica is more than just a piece of art. It embodies the essence of history itself. As a renowned art critic, Robert Hughes aptly noted, "It's the last great history painting."